So as you go along your Linux journey, at some point you're probably going to want to start installing software and packages on your operating system. Again, we find ourselves typically in this environment where we don't necessarily have a web browser, a downloads bar, an icon to click on. So then the question asked is, how do we actually get stuff from the web downloaded onto our machine? Well, there's a few different ways we can approach this. So if you watch our video regarding kind of the introduction to Linux, you'll recall that we have a lot of different distributions of Linux, right? And a lot of these distributions are kind of grouped into families. So we're using a flavor of Linux called Ubuntu. And Ubuntu is what's called a Debian-based distribution. Because it's a Debian-based distribution, it uses a package manager called apt, okay? So this package manager is something that is synced to a remote repo. So there's a website somewhere that hosts all of this software, and we basically download from that using the command line. Now, the command you use and the repositories that you are working against, that will vary determining your distribution of Linux. Okay, so if you're using Red Hat, for example, you might be using Yum as opposed to apt. So what we're going to do is we're going to install things. Know that the process is going to be very similar in different distributions, but for this exact example is how we're going to do things on a Debian-based distribution. So the first thing I want to do is I want to install a package called SL. So if I type in SL right off the bat, it says command SL not found, but can be installed with apt install SL. Well, that seems reasonable. Let's go ahead and try that. Apt install SL, and we press enter, and we run into a bit of a problem, right? We get this error, we get two error messages, right? One of which says we could not open the lock file, permission denied, right? We get another thing here that says, are you root? Those are two keywords here that we're looking for anytime we run any software, we run into an issue. Are you root? Permission denied. The problem is we are trying to install a package for the whole operating system as a single user. So it's saying you don't have permission to do that. So what we essentially need to do, if you think about this in terms of like a Windows or Mac operating system, is that run as administrator concept, right? To do that, we're going to use a command called sudo. We will go into the sudo command in greater depth in a different module. But for now, just know that this is basically how we're going to run something as an administrator. So I'm going to use the same command, but I'm going to type in sudo in front of it and press enter. And now it's going to ask me for my password. And if you're using the Duke virtual machines, this is going to be your Duke NetID password. Now you'll notice as I type in, you don't actually see your characters going up to the screen. This is normal. The reason for this is for basically what I'm doing right now. I don't want you to see my password. I don't want you to know my credentials. So it's a way so people cannot see what's going on, but know your input is still being taken. This is the same thing that happens when you SSH onto a machine and you can't see your password when you're typing in. So now I've typed in my password, hopefully correctly. I'll go ahead and press enter. And I didn't type in my password correctly. So we'll go for it again. Third time's the charm, right? So we get the password typed in correctly, and then we can see everything getting downloaded. So let's go ahead and run our command again, SL. And sure enough, there we get Steam Locomotive. That's all this thing is. It's just a package that's going to run a Steam Locomotive that runs across your stream. Let's do one more installation just to get some reps and maybe show us something else more useful, more interesting. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to do sudo. We know we need to use sudo to install things. And I'm going to do apt install. And I'm going to do a package this time called htop. Right? And, oh, I typoed apt to API, apt install htop, and I typoed that. Gotta get it together. There's sudo apt install htop. Although note, very worth noting, all of these error commands, they had some sort of idea of what I was going for, right? So the Linux operating system, it has an idea of what you're going for, and it's just trying to give you some hints to go along the way. No typos, great. We're doing our installation. And again, worth noting, this is all pulling from pre-configured repositories from the folks that maintain your distribution, okay? So now I'm going to go ahead and type in htop, right? And I always tell folks, if you want to make people on the airplane nervous next to you, pull this in front of them. There's a lot of bars going on, numbers flashing all over the place. Nobody will know what the heck is going on. But what this is actually showing kind of your system status, right? This is showing you that, hey, I have 2 cores, it looks like. I have 3.2 gigs of memory. Here's what's going on. So a very handy tool and very simple way to install just by using the app repositories. So I'm just going to go ahead and get out of here by pressing F10. And that's how we're going to install things with a repository. Now, the repositories are very handy. They're very quick. They're very convenient. There are some drawbacks with them. First drawback being, not everything on planet Earth is going to be put in a repository for you. The second thing is, there may be some things in repositories that come with a version that maybe you don't want that version. They're not always necessarily kept up to date, so you may be able to get a newer version by installing things we call from source. So what we're going to do now is we're going to install something from source. So I'm going to open up this web browser here. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be installing some software called Miniconda. Okay, this Miniconda is a Python package that will allow me to run Python on my machine. Now what I'm going to do here, we notice I can't just click on this thing, right? I can't just click on this thing and download because it won't download to my virtual machine. So how do I actually get this? Well, a great way to do this is when you go to your web browser, if you hover over it and you look at the bottom left of the screen, they're kind of hard to see, but right above my Miniconda, my Zoom icon there, you can see that it's referencing a .sh file. And if you've taken our module on shell scripts, we know that that's a shell script, right? So I'm actually just going to right click on this thing and I'm going to click on copy link address to copy the address of it. And then I'm going to minimize this and go back to our virtual machine. I'm going to use a command called wget. Think of wget as just a way to make a browser call as if you pasted something into your web browser and press enter. So I'm going to do that, but I'm going to do it with this .sh file. So we can see the full address. And as I press enter, look what's happening when I press ls. It downloaded the file and put it on my machine. Now I have a shell script. So if you take in our module on shell scripts and understanding bash scripts, we'll know right off the bat that if we do ls-al, we can see that this does not have execute permissions. So we're going to run chmod +x on Miniconda. And again, we have other modules both on shell scripting and file permissions, so you can understand what this means and understand what a bash shell script is a bit more in depth. So I'm going to go ahead and make this executable, and then I'm going to go ahead and execute the file. And sure enough, look, now we're just running through an install process, right? So I'm just following the prompts. I'm carefully reading every single line of this. And once we get to the end of this thing that I've carefully read every single line of, I'm going to type in yes as it asks for. I'm just going to keep following the prompts. In this case, I'm fine with it installing in this directory. I'll just press enter. And now this thing is going to continue to install for me. So you see that this is a different way of doing business. The benefit we get here is one, Miniconda, again, there might not be a Debian package for, or maybe I'm not using Debian, right? Maybe I'm using a different distribution that doesn't have an Anaconda package, or maybe I need a different version of Miniconda. This way I can go out to the web, get the script, get the makefile that I want specific to my need, and then install it myself. And now if we look here, we have Miniconda 3 in action. If I cd into Miniconda 3, cd into bin, look at that, we have all of these commands we can do. We should be able to do /conda, and look at that, we have commands. So now we've seen two different ways that we can install software on the Linux operating system.